much welcome to you both, Jemima and your husband, Dr. Williams. Thank you very much for coming today. Jemima, we know you as a very long-standing mesh campaigner and that you've worked beyond your own organisation and you've helped set up the Global Mesh Alliance, so you're looking very widely across the world, as it were. During the last oral hearing, you brought a number of outstanding problems to our attention, and thank you very much for that. And also to your husband, Dr. Dennis Williams, for raising concerns about mesh sufferers and the role of GPs. It's very helpful to us. Since the oral hearing, we know that there's been a lot of correspondence, and thank you again for that. We really looked at what you've been sending, and particularly the photographs, which are very good for us, the online paper articles, and the
I've edited
articles.
them so that they don't include advertising.
You don't need to apologise. It's all part of our learning,
Yeah.
and we do want to thank you for that. And so, as I was saying, the newspaper articles and the academic articles, and also the FDA adverse events reports. So this session is your opportunity, bearing in mind that we are now near the end of our fact-finding sessions. They're drawing to a close. But we have always put patients first, patients at the beginning, and now it's patients at the end. And you, I'm sure, through the correspondence you've sent us, and also perhaps you've been watching some of the sessions on the website. So it's you and your husband's opportunity now to tell us what particular issues you'd like us to consider, because we will now start writing our report after these sessions. So anything that you've got to tell us would be huge.
Yeah, we've both written something, but we promise not to go. We haven't overlapped. We collaborated this time.
We've changed the order. I'm going to speak first on strict instructions,
okay.
and I don't go on for too long. So.
Well, that's absolutely fine. It's your session, and you can run it as you wish.
Thanks all.
So, Dr. Williams, perhaps you could just say who you are.
Indeed, I'm Dr. Dennis Williams, recently retired GP of 40 years, and now an occupational health physician, because I haven't stopped working yet, it's too early. But yes, and I'm Jemima's husband. So.
And Jemima.
And I'm the founder of the Welsh Mesh Survivors Support Group. My name's Jemima Williams, as you know. So...
Right, thank you very much.
Can I just, if I start, will that be okay?
Yes, and I don't think I have to introduce ourselves.
No, not at all. It's a pleasure to see you all again.
All right, thank you.
And thank you for inviting us back. I think it's a nice opportunity for us to sort of feedback. It was an excellent idea to put all the oral interviews online, because it gave people an opportunity to view them and actually see how widespread this problem is. It was really quite harrowing listening to some of the mesh survivors' statements, and I must compliment you of your compassion and understanding, and most particularly for your stamina and resilience in sitting there, and just because it's such a difficult thing to do. I looked through many of the interviews online, but I tended to concentrate more on those from the health professionals. And I must admit, I got quite upset and angry at some of them. It was evident to me that many of these gynecologists and urogynecologists, all of whom are well regarded, have excellent reputations, and most of whom work in sort of centres of special excellence, clinical excellence, they were really quite arrogant and often dismissive of the scale of the side effects that their patients were suffering. And they seemed to be, they were being Russian roulette with their patients. They, if they looked at even the lowest quotes, 1 in 10 individuals getting side effects, it seemed to be an acceptable level to them, and that really upset me. And there were several points that I picked out. One that I thought was really difficult, and some of them admitted that they had lists of patients awaiting mesh surgery, and that they were actually indirectly accusing you for delaying them being able to put the stuff in, and saying that they were constantly in touch with these people and will tell them when the green light is for them to put it in again. That doesn't cause any understanding to me. And another dig at the committee was that they couldn't wait for you to publish your findings. And I just felt that they really weren't taking it as serious. In fact, they didn't really think that you were important and what you were doing was important. That's the impression I got. Very few of them were promoting non-mesh surgical intervention above mesh intervention. And I mean, the few that came on were specifically anti-mesh, were excellent in a way, and I feel, but they're out on a limb. I just get the impression they're out on a limb. They're one of the few. And it concerns me that they admitted that many of their junior colleagues were unable to do things like corporal suspension and other non-mesh operations, and admitted that they required retraining, but there's no suggestion that this should commence. And I just wonder how we're actually going to implement the changes that need to take place. I was surprised that NICE decided to publish their guidelines before your report was issued. And not only that, but they actually preempted your decision by putting mesh in there as one of the options for SUI. They didn't even think that you might say it's going to be suspended for a longer period of time. And I just wonder, if you look through the proposal, well, the NICE guidelines are out, but if you look through them, I just see they're going to be very difficult to put into practice, in my opinion. When Professor Cardozo said that she's got this busy NHS clinic, she has so many ladies with SUI referred to her clinic, and that she does have a specialist physiotherapist and other members of her MDT team, but that it was one physiotherapist in a very busy clinic, and the physiotherapist waiting lists were long. How do we overcome that and follow the NICE guidelines? It's impossible. And what will happen is, and I did write a timeline, but I'm not going to go through it, but I worked it out on the best sort of suggestion that I could make. The average time to get an appointment for a gynecologist, certainly in Wales, is between 3 to 6 months if you're lucky. It's often longer. And that's assuming that they've already seen their GP, they've been diagnosed with probably SUI, and they get referred. Then they eventually get seen, and if the consultant agrees that they've got an SUI and they need intervention of some sort, it's taken to the local MDT. One of the consultants says their local MDT met every 4 weeks. So that's another month's delay. Then they have to make a decision, and then if they decide on pelvic floor exercises or whatever, the recommendation is 16 weeks for that. And that's assuming that the physiotherapist can see them straight away, which is extremely unlikely. Is the physiotherapist going to have enough time to actually see the individual several times throughout that period of time? Or indeed, are they going to give them some exercise, say, go away and try them for 16 weeks? They might be doing it completely wrongly unless they followed up. And the whole time scale from actually getting to the point of, let's assuming that these ladies require surgical intervention of some sort at the end, they eventually get to see a consultant who is considering surgical intervention 2-3 years down the line, because that's what it will be. And then they find out that the consultant is unable to do the operation that they choose, a non-mesh operation. And they get the option of going somewhere else and seeing someone else. If you're a patient, you're not going to want to do that. They're going to accept the option that's put in front of them, because they don't want to delay it any longer. I mean, we all know these are non-life-threatening illnesses, but they are very disturbing for some women. I'm talking specifically about SUI now, POP comes into it as well, but it's an inconvenience, it's an embarrassing condition, but the bottom line is it's not life-threatening. And these ladies just want some solution. And if they've had medication, if they've had physio, they've had medication, they've had tried bulking agent, they end up seeing a consultant who says, right, you need a surgery, I can put a sling in for you, but it'll be a mesh sling. But if you don't want that, a consultant down the road might be able to do it, because there's no list of the skills of the consultants and who can put them in or not. So I just feel a lot of them may decide to go privately, and I guarantee you that most of them will be offered mesh privately, because that's the easy option. And plus I'm doing the consultants a disservice there, but that's the way I feel. We can shorten this period. In Wales, they set up a group called WIG, Women's Health Implementation Group. And they've taken a year to get off the ground, really. Jemima and I go there regularly. Jemima's the main voice, but I go along. But they're listening, just like you, and they're also trying to move forward. And they're trying to help both the ladies who are now suffering from mesh problems, and the one to try and stop some sort of getting in the future. And they've proposed setting up pelvic floor coordinators, which they would have one in every health authority. We've put some literature in for
We've put some of that in here.
And this has only happened at the last meeting, in fact, which was last Monday. And basically, these would be a first port of call, currently for ladies who are mesh injured, but also, hopefully, for GPs who are referring ladies with SUI, so they could see a pelvic floor expert before they actually go and see a gynecologist. This would lessen the time scale quite dramatically, and it's relatively easy to set that as long as you've got the physiotherapist in line. And obviously, one pelvic floor coordinator is not going to be enough in one health authority. But if they can get physiotherapists on board, and they not only are they going to send them to physio, but they will send them to any sort of agency, medical agency that can help them. So they're getting help. As far as the mesh injured are concerned, their intention is they're actually going to take individual stories from the individual, look at their treatment lines, see what's happened to them.
I'm going to speak to that.
I know, and then they will be treated in that area. They will be referred to people who they can appropriate early on. And I think this is the sort of thing we've got to do. The NICE guidelines, just to go back to them a little bit, are far from being ideal, but they do set out a pathway which is a good guideline to start. It needs tweaking. But I don't know whether you've seen the patient leaflets explaining the potential hazards that they've published. They're appalling. They say that there's one specifically for the potential hazards from mesh surgery, and they will say that 1 in 10 patients may suffer symptoms from mesh rejection or mesh side effects. And then they emphasize again, but that means that between 90 and 99 people are not going to have problems. And they actually put this in the leaflet. Now that's very condescending to the patients, for one thing, but it also takes away the message that they're trying to relay, that this stuff can be dangerous. And, you know, and if they've got to emphasize how serious these things are. And they're not doing it, and NICE are not doing it. That's almost it, except that I saw the MHRA interview yesterday. We actually watched it yesterday, and I was appalled. They were like rabbits in headlights. They had no idea what to do. And I really came across to me that despite the fact that they're meant to be looking at the safety of these mesh and other implants, they're concerned more about the pharmaceutical companies than they are about the patient.
Yeah, I agree. And
they haven't got the data. They just don't appear to understand what is going on. They're statisticians as far as I can see. And these notifiable bodies who actually, after 1 year, can see a mesh implant, look at the research that's been done by the pharmaceutical company, and they then give them the kite mark, the C mark, and they can
continue
put it on the market. I just wonder if you know, the notified bodies were as diligent as they should be, would they actually still be in work? If they were sort of being difficult to a pharmaceutical company, would they actually then, the pharmaceutical company, then try and find another body that will actually be more sympathetic to their cause? That worries me greatly. Because, and having just a year, well, maximum 2, before they allow these things onto the market, and then there's no follow-up. And that was the other thing I meant to say about the consultants. At least 3 consultants, including Professor Cardoza, said that follow-up of patients who have mesh inserted is not often done face-to-face now. It's either done by triage with a nurse or over the telephone. And that's just the immediate follow-up. That is not the 1 year, 5 years, 10 years perhaps, which is what they should be thinking of doing. So all in all, there's an awful long way to go. I know much of what I said about the consultants trying to bully you was addressed in your statement on the 16th of May, and I applaud you for that. I thought that was an excellent thing to do, because there are lots of very worried women out there who thought this stuff is now going to be start putting in again, and everything had gone pear-shaped, and this didn't matter anymore. And you certainly relieved their anxiety, and I thank you for that. There's just a few little things that I wrote down last night that are a way forward, possibly. I feel that all consultant gynecologists and urogynecologists need to admit that inserting mesh into patients carries considerable risk. And at the moment, I don't think they do that. I think they need not only to reflect on what they have done because of this review body, which some of them actually said, but to radically change the way that they use mesh for any procedures. They can no longer take risks with patient lives. Information leaflets have to be robust, they have to be accurate and reflect the severity of the side effects that mesh can cause. I don't want to frighten people, but at the same time they need to know the facts. When we watched Mary McLaughlin's interview, and she said about the consent form that she was asked to sign to have her mesh removed, but it said total removal, and as you know, and I'm not going to repeat it, but it wasn't going to be that. And if she hadn't questioned it, that is what she would have had. So I actually feel that the consultant is not the person to ask the patient to sign the consent form. I think it should be an independent individual, perhaps someone in the NDTT, but someone with a knowledge of all the side effects that are going on, with all the information to hand about side effects, procedures, even of the instruments and the mesh there for them to see. That would be a way forward, and that would actually be much more informed consent than they're having now. We all, you know about the records of operations and everything, and the materials used. Everything has got to be recorded. What's put in, the length of what they put in, and I mean, it was interesting. Some of the consultants says we can't say how long the piece of mesh is that we put in because we don't know how much we're going to use until they just measure what's left, for God's sake. I mean, if you've got a piece, that's the main thing. Say whether it's 25, 26, 27 centimeters have gone in. If you've got whatever's left. So that seems unbelievable to do. And long-term follow-up has to be mandatory. I think these ladies, if they go onto a database, and if they have side effects, they go into a database to registry, so it can be brought, they can be followed up, and they can be followed through and see if they have late side effects. And there was another thing that was said about if a lady had mesh eroding into the vagina and didn't complain about it, then she should be not bother to be treated with, because why fix something that they're not complaining about? The fact that the mesh is coming through means that it is going to get worse as time goes on.
And the pain is intense.
But if they're not complaining, they haven't got the pain. And what they were talking about, if you've got elderly women who've got mesh still inside them, should you follow them up? Well, I actually think you should, because there may be something else going on, but because they're not having intercourse, or because they have elderly will have vaginitis more often, or senile vaginitis.
Elderly people don't talk about these things anyway.
So, I just feel that they have to take it more seriously. We have to look at a much broader spectrum of how we deal with people with mesh. And I haven't even mentioned about taking out mesh from ladies who are already harmed, and I won't go there today, because I think that that is another minefield.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that you'd be here for about 2 hours if I started talking about it. So that's all I want to say at the moment.
Thank you very, very much.
Is it okay if I just read out
Yes,
a
Jemima.
statement? These are thoughts and feelings from people in the Welsh group. I've brought along a folder of some of the things that I'm going to talk about, of evidence from our Welsh members, and I'll explain, but I need my glasses.
Which are here?
No, they're here.
Sorry, can I just ask in the interim, Dr. Williams, when you were talking about the pelvic life coordinators and the group work that's going on under the WIG scheme, is that out in the public domain?
The WIG group was set up by Vaughan Gethin, the current health secretary. He put in charge of a lady called Tracy Myhill, who's one of the chief executives of one of the health boards, and she has basically spent a year speaking to ladies who are suffering with mesh problems around the table. Sometimes it's a free-for-all, and I really feel sorry for her. But they're starting to move forward, and now the ladies have got it off their chests, and they've told everyone. They're starting to sit back and realise that we need to move forward. And they've come up with these ideas. There's not only Tracy, but there's a couple of others as well working with her. And these
are the ideas in the public domain? Because I know about the group.
The ideas are in the public. We've actually got
the
publication.
The ideas are in the public domain.
Sorry, they are.
I'll talk a little bit about it.
We asked permission to give it to you, and they said yes.
Yeah, yes, we asked them at the previous
last meeting, and they said, so that's why we're giving it to you.
So if I can just read this, because I'm terribly nervous and I don't want to forget anything. And I may have to stand up and down because it's quite painful actually to speak in a loud voice for me. So, first of all, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank Baroness Julia and the review team, who many of us have come to realise that you have listened to UK mesh survivors and heard us, and that you have already acted upon our evidence. We thank you for your patience and your compassion. We would also like to pay tribute to the chairman of BOWS, Chris Harding, and also Professor Hashim for their excellent information and interaction with mesh injured patients on Twitter. I'd like to thank my rock, actually, because without him I wouldn't be able to have done any of what I do, because, you know, it is what it is. Welsh mesh survivors want to pay particular attention in thanking the Welsh Government in setting up WIG, Women's Health Implementation Group, Tracy Myhill, the chair, and the coordinator, Jodie Stojanovic, for their part in implementing a good strategy in pelvic healthcare pathways, and now recently in the trial of the mapping of mesh injured patient experience so far, and developing individual care plans to help us move forward. So that is being trialled with the working core group of the Welsh Mesh Survivors Support Group. So many UK mesh injured people are experiencing great difficulty in finding the help we so desperately need, and busy consultants move on, forgetting to call us back with results and appointment dates, etc., and we just can't get hold of them, unless, of course, we pay privately. Cross-border funding is desperately needed now, and healthcare pathways for mesh injured need urgent development. Translabial scans. Mesh survivors have been encouraged by American groups that the translabial ultrasound scan are the way forward in visualising mesh. But we know that only experts, experienced sonographers and experienced radiographers can read them, leading consultants to dismiss the results. Even so, there are many UK consultants and healthcare professionals that seem to be setting up quite lucrative businesses providing these scans, leaving mesh survivors feeling exploited and defeated. The evidence is enclosed, so that's receipts and things from different mesh survivors with the different levels of price ranges, and they range from between £250 and £425, only for those people then to go to their consultants, and their consultants go, oh, that's not worth the paper it's printed on. During the evidence that you have made public over the last year, we've all been witness to the fact that some surgeons are being paid to put mesh in and then paid to take it out. Some also are paid to write expert witness statements in mesh litigation. In America, this is known to be called double dipping, very lucrative. Mesh is never blamed, the inept surgeons are blamed, which brings me on to compensation. In Parliament, Lord Brennan made an excellent reference to this, stating that a levy should be paid by manufacturers, a brilliant idea. Jackie Doyle-Price also made reference in her statement to Mesh Injured to sue the surgeons. We want to be useful to our families. We want to be able to live normal lives on the days that we can. There are many days when most of us, including myself, can't even get out of bed because the illness and the pain is so severe. Many consultants' attitudes must change. The quote, "You have to break a few eggs to make an omelette," is appalling. We are subject to eye rolling by many consultants. The research into mesh, in our view, must be repeated, particularly as the FDA have just recently admitted to autoimmune problems being connected to surgical devices. And then we have alternative summary reporting, set up for manufacturers et al. To hide the true figures of complications. We have the CEO of J&J shouting, 60-40 go. Get that product on the market fast. That's in all of his inspirational YouTube videos. Meanwhile, the broken eggs suffer and die. The mesh injured, our sisters and our brothers. The mesh world is surrounded by a darkness. It's a lucrative business all round. We stand as a voice in tribute and honour to those without a voice and to the dead. Shame on the manufacturers and healthcare professionals hiding the truth. They have blood on their hands. Gwaedare ddwylo. Shame on the doctors who want to continue inserting mesh. Survivors feel that consent is about protecting the surgeon from litigation. It's not about protecting the patient. The surgeons openly admit they haven't a clue as to how to do a full removal, including the fixings. Staples come with a warning that it's linked to cancer in patients. We are having partial removals and all of this crap is left inside us. There's also a contraindication that those staples should not be used on arteries. My iliac artery is stapled because they perforated it at some point, and that wasn't even found out until 2013. Shame on all of these people awaiting the green light for go. Business as usual. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you very, very much indeed. That was very compelling. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the work that you've done is fantastic, and I just hope now that once you have written your report and it's been published, it will have some impact upon particularly the consultants who insist, that majority of them insist, that there is not a problem with mesh. I understand its uses, I understand that it can have beneficial results in patients. There's no getting away from that. But you cannot ignore the rate of the side effects that are happening. And you can't use patients as guinea pigs and say, well, you should be all right. Not, you will be all right. But that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's always this doubt in their minds. And they're not prepared to accept the fact that they are taking the risk. They are telling the patients one thing, but possibly believe another. Or if they don't believe that there are problems.
Just interject just for one moment. I sent you the 5-year period of the freedom of information that I had from the MHRA, talking, the complications
that have
been reported of the adverse events. There are at least 2,500 pelvic mesh complications within that report, just the 5-year period, which are mostly serious, and 3 deaths have been reported. And there's also the hernia mesh. I know that the review isn't covering that, but this really needs to be investigated too, hernia and rectopexy mesh. There were far less reports of hernia injuries, but there are, even so, in that 5-year period, 5 deaths connected to that. And there's just a list of questions which I'd forgotten up until now, but I just need to ask you this. Can the mesh injured be assured of improved treatment and healthcare pathways by compassionate consultants? We need honesty, transparency, and safety. Alternative summary reporting, which connects to the freedom of information. Does the MHRA have such a register which hides the true numbers of AEs concerning devices, as the FDA have just admitted to having had? And since John Wilkinson has stepped down, can we be assured that there will be a rapid improvement in the regulatory system? Can Jackie Doyle-Price assure the mesh injured of help to sue the surgeons, as she suggested?
The other thing is, you asked us a lot of other questions of things that we could do. Can we just take note of those at this time and consider them?
Even though I've handwritten my statement and the questions, because my health is up and down, and so I can only do certain things at certain times. So I've handwritten it. It's not too bad. And I'll leave you the questions as well, and this is all a present for you. Okay.
So if you'd like us to take copies of those so that you
It's
have
fine.
them returned.
No, you can have them.
No, have them,
Right.
it's fine. I've taken photographs of them to put on the group to explain what I was going to say. We haven't been able to cover every single thing, but I'm sure that you've had all of the details that people have asked us to cover from other survivors, and so at the end of the day you don't want to hear it again and again. It's difficult. Okay.
Can I just say we've heard of new stuff
Yes.
in your oral evidence just now.
Right.
So thank you very much for that.
That's good then. Thank you.
Yes, because we're always learning and we're always taking more and more evidence.
And I'll always
so-
email you unless you block me from from your email box.
Very good. So, do you
Thank you so much.
I was interested in the WIG group that you set up. Is there a link to that? Do they publish minutes and papers? Are there terms
Yes,
of reference?
they do. Well, they have been doing, but up until now, with what I've actually put in here in this, they have now set up, as I said, a trial with mapping personal experiences, because some of us have been through terrible ordeals all the way through, and we stopped going to the doctor. We've stopped going to our consultants because it's just really, it's difficult. We know that we're difficult cases. We know that now nothing more that can be done for us. I've been told that I've got this and this, and I need a colostomy, but it will have to be done this way, and I'll be in hospital for many weeks, and that I'm susceptible to sepsis, and so it'd have to be done under the NHS. I would want to choose the consultant that I gave my life, in whose hands I would be giving my life, because I've been experimented upon enough. I've been a guinea pig, and I don't want to be a guinea pig anymore. There was one removal that I had when I woke up from the operation. I'd had blood transfusion, and when I looked at my stomach, I looked as though some madman had been let loose with a staple gun. It was disgusting, and the way that I was treated after, I won't go into, by a really, there was no compassion from the male consultant. The female consultant was fantastic. The male consultant was horrible. I never want to go there again. So, as things stand, many of us try and deal with our situations and our conditions in as best a way that we can, and that's not ideal. When I use my, is this on camera? When I use my Peristine, my colonic irrigation, my bowel collapses around the catheter. Sometimes the spasm is so great that the catheter bursts, and you can't imagine the mess that makes. And if I am really very ill, my spine, I've had recent MRIs and things, my spine is destroyed. My lower spine is destroyed. It's bone on bone. I can't have another implant, titanium rods and screws, due to the fact that I've already had a device that has rejected, and that may be hosting the residual mesh and staples, may be hosting a bacterial infection, which could then go on to become infect another device. I've been told this by an immunologist, and so I'm coping. I'm not always managing, but I'm coping. There are times when my spine is in such a state I can't actually turn around to use my Peristine, and I won't allow Dennis to come and help me. So then I become obstructed. So, it's a...
In answer to your question, the complex ladies involved in this meeting with WIC, they've had the opportunity for a year to tell their stories and explain how difficult life is for them now, and the difficulty in getting follow-up. They've lost trust in the surgeons that have put the material in them, and they keep hearing stories about different consultants who they've been recommended to, because other people have got horror stories about them. So it's taken certainly 10 months for these ladies to have their say and get it out there, so that, and Tracy and the others,
Jodie, and
they're very sympathetic, very much like yourself. They listen, they take it on board, and they'll realise that they've got two things to do really. One is to look after these ladies and try and find a pathway that they can have some form of satisfaction and actual help that matters with people that they trust. So by setting up these pelvic floor coordinators, they can literally have a one-to-one. They use this, they're individuals. And so therefore they can go and they say, well, you know, we've got Dr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so who's going to do this. And they will be allowed to say no if they don't particularly want to go and see that consultant. So they're trying to individualise it for the women that are suffering. What they're trying to do with the pelvic floor coordinator as well is to create a system whereby there is a means of getting these ladies to have simple things such as pelvic floor exercises and things by an expert and have it registered that they've actually been there and done it. And then so they're trying to move on now. What they're doing is actually reducing the number of people that are going to these meetings. So Jemima and a couple of her colleagues will be representatives there, and more will get done. But the whole one guy can put forward £1 million to try and fund
a year, £1 million a year.
So they were actually at the last meeting saying how they intended to spend that money, and the plan is that would be ongoing for at least for a few years, as long as the budget allows.
So they've put that into physiotherapy and so on.
And so what they're actually doing now is creating guidelines that GPs can use, the patients can use, and they'll be, I suppose it'll be more specific to the needs of the individual, and it will actually, hopefully, act as an education tool to lots of my medical colleagues who still feel that, you know, if they've got a different pathway, they can go to the pelvic floor coordinator and send straight to a gynaecologist. A, it's going to save time. B, it may be people who will never need to go and see the gynaecologist then. And so that's the way forward they're going to try. And I think that if they get it off the ground, it could be something that could take off all over the UK.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. But I simply, Jemima, I don't want to dismiss what you've just told us.
No.
And all I can say is that we are so shocked by the suffering that you personally have had and other people as well. But thank you for telling us that. There's one question I'd like to ask you, which I'm afraid is rather managerial, if you like. It's about funding cross-border treatment. And I think in the past you have just mentioned that.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a difficulty. So
it is a difficult, and the other thing, and I've actually put something in there. A few of our members suffering with rectopexy mesh because of one of the surgeons who is now suspended. Their beacon of light and hope had been to come to have an operation with a surgeon who is now been stopped from doing operations for whatever reason, because no information is coming through. But that light, that beacon of light, has been completely extinguished, and a couple of them are young mums with young children. One of the mums, two of her children are on the autistic spectrum. Her life is so difficult, and her beacon of hope has been diminished. It's been extinguished, actually, with letters to say that their operations have been cancelled. And you know, some of these ladies are suicidal with the pain. It's horrendous.
The reason for stopping cross-border is obviously funding. But the other thing is,
let me just say, Vaughan Gething has made arrangements with, I think it's a hospital in Manchester, for some of the North Wales survivors to be able to go to be seen and operated on. So
it's hoped that the WIG thing, again with this pelvic floor coordinator, will have the facility to, because at the moment what they say is, if there's a consultant capable of doing the procedure in your health authority, then you don't need to go elsewhere. That's their rationale. Whereas if, again, the individual has been upset or doesn't trust the consultant that's in their own area, requesting to go somewhere else is not a good enough reason as far as the health body is concerned. However, it's hoped that we can now overcome that and that Welsh patients particularly will be able to move around Wales should they find it a suitable surgeon in another area.
Or even cross
as long as it is
Bristol.
Agreed, and they're then going to try that further afield, but obviously they have to coordinate with England in order to try and sort that out. But that's the plan, because they've lost faith in the local consultants, and it's true of English patients with English consultants.
It's right across the UK.
So it's not that, isn't it? And unfortunately, surgeons are not gods. They can't get it all right all the time. Some would think they can. But I just feel that if we allow that, and we look at these patients on an individual basis, but they're not given a straight no. If they say, well, look, if you fulfill these criteria, and if WIG is behind them, and if the pelvic floor coordinators are behind them, the chances of achieving cross-border funding are much higher. And I think that's a way forward, at least.
And Chris Harding has actually contacted Jodie Stojanovic, who is one of the WIG coordinators, and has offered help, with problems and questions and so on. So that's good too. It's good that these surgeons are now beginning to interact with patients, which they should have done all along, but because of you. That's because of you. They've started to do this, to interact with patients and interact with each other, because I think that is really important. The consultants need to share knowledge and expertise in order to help us. Every single one of the consultants have made mistakes, all of them. But some have had more positives than negatives, and so in the mesh community they are being looked upon as gods, almost. And I want to go to this particular person because I think that he can do more for me than my local consultants can.
It was interesting that one of the urogynecologists was saying about putting autologous slings in, and that he was teaching his junior surgeons to put them in because they had never put them in. They'd always put mesh in previously. And I think you have to get back to the Royal Colleges and say, look, if you're going to be a consultant gynecologist in this current day, you have to have the skills across the board and not just concentrate. It's not a minutiae speciality. It's a broad band, and putting in the obturator slings and transobturator slings is unbelievable. They know when they put them in, they can't take them out. They know it. They've said on tape, I wouldn't go there. And they look absolutely petrified.
So they have no right using it.
So you're putting it into an area, you've no idea, what's there properly, because if you can't operate in the area, you don't really know the anatomy that well anyway, and you're sticking something in there. And then you can't get it out. And I think they have to either say, right, that is banned completely, we just cannot do it. It's impossible. And mesh is difficult to take out, even if it's in the anterior vaginal wall. But let alone, and once it's cut, once the mesh is cut, it does contract, and you can't trace the whole length of it. And because, as they said, you don't know how much they put in because they don't measure it, then you don't know how much is there to take out. And
even so, once it's cut, you can't find ends. Another consultant can't find the ends to sort of follow it through and trace it through to remove it.
I know there's been a lot of media hype and sort of requests from particularly the Scottish mesh survivors about trying to get some of the surgeons from America over who do take out obturator sling regularly and have lots of experience to come over. But there's a resistance by the medical professor here
it's arrogance and ego,
medical profession to try and accept that they need further teaching from somebody outside the country. But if you haven't got the skills, you've got to get them from somewhere.
I don't think that wants to come over here specifically to train consultants. His offer was as far as I've been told by himself, that he would come and operate on those very difficult cases and to help with the backlog of people who are suffering. Some of them are really, you know, my friend, she's really going through it. But they're only a couple of people. There are hundreds and hundreds of people out there who are desperate now.
Simon?
Could I just ask a question about one of the other subjects that you both raised, which is regulation? So you both touched on it, and I just wondered what your thoughts were about how to make the regulatory system better. And I know that's a very big question and we haven't got very much time, but it'd be good to hear your thoughts on that.
But I think, sorry, did you go first?
I was just about to say truth, honesty and transparency. Stop hiding the true facts. You cannot regulate or research unless you have the true facts and figures. I mean, it just stands to reason. Alternative summary reporting is evil, because how can you know the true facts?
I think that if you look from the surgeon's point of view, then they have to write up their surgical records immediately after the operation. That's always been the case. Then obviously what they need to do is increase the amount of data that goes into that. All implants, whether it's mesh or anything else, has got to have some form of coding, a barcode or something attached to it that is put on to the operation records. They have to, if they put it in tape, mesh, whatever, they have to put in the size of what they put in. They have to say what they put in.
What goes in and what comes out.
And then they have to, I think then, do a follow-up and actually come back with more information after they've seen the patient. Say a week or 10 days post-op, whatever they decide is most appropriate, but then there should be a follow-up of a year or longer, a year, 1 year, 5 years, depending on the situation. And even if it's a letter to the patient and just say, how are you feeling? You had a sling a year ago, how are you feeling? Then they'll have at least 50% return, if not more, hopefully. But if this information is available now within some of the hospitals, it's just not coordinated. And consultants don't talk to each other. I think they all use different materials. And you could go into the same hospital, they're using 4 or 5 different sorts of slings. They're not using the same stuff that's going in. And I know, and don't get me wrong, I know they're busy. Nobody knows it more than me that it's extremely busy under the NHS. But they have to start sitting back and taking note of what they're actually doing. And to deny the fact that there's side effects and to deny the fact that every time they put in a mesh there's not going to be a chance of a rejection is so foolish.
It is.
And so they've got to be professional. They've got to want to put this right. And this is the bit that gets me. They don't appear to want to put it right because they don't actually think there's a problem. And that
they're
came
hiding the truth.
In some of the statements from some of the senior consultants online, I just got the impression we know what we're doing it the right way, and you've just opened a hornet's nest.
You've spoilt it for us.
And it's sad that they're not prepared to sit back and say, there's obviously something wrong, how can we correct it?
Mesh survivors truly feel that the MHRA are not fit for purpose. How many times have you heard that in your travels around the country?
In truth.
There needs to be a new regulatory system, a new body put in place above the MHRA, because they are funded by Big Pharma. We know that, and I'm sure you know that.
But I think
that's what's needed. That's the only way we're going to make a move forward.
I feel with the MHRA that when you interviewed them, they really, as I said, they were like rabbits in headlights, but they didn't have any answers because they actually haven't got a handle on what they're doing. They collect data, but they don't seem to do anything with it. They really devolve responsibility for giving the CMARCs to other people, and then they just rubber stamp.
And then they blame the surgeons as well.
And if you look at the figures that Jemima had on the freedom of information from the MHRA, at the end, they've got little comments like cause unidentified, device not...
Device incompatibility.
Yeah, but no, they put device not incriminated or something like this at the end.
Yeah.
But they've got all this online, but they haven't looked at it and thought, well, we have got all these, and a lot of them are marked as serious.
Yeah. Yeah, well, mostly serious.
What's their threshold for deciding that there's something wrong with the device? They didn't appear to have one. And if you look, there's 2,500 plus on the list that we've got, and that's only for 3.
I've only brought the hernia mesh stuff.
Oh yeah, but all right, but you had the others. When I just can't understand where their threshold is for actually thinking, is there something wrong? They said, oh, if we think there's something wrong, we'll do something about it, and we do have the authority to withdraw a product from the market. But I, as a GP, received quite frequently the notes about a drug or something like that they'd withdrawn or they suspended for a while. But they don't seem to look at the bigger picture of, they don't appear to accept that these devices have not been trialled enough before they're put into humans. They are prepared, because it's a device and not a medication, they feel, what the hell, we have to take it back out again.
Yeah,
but it can't be taken out, and that's the problem.
And the other thing, can I just say one thing? The other thing within the deaths, they say sudden deterioration due to infection. But the device isn't incriminated. So we know that when mesh fails, you have infection. And some of us have serious, we're under serious threat of sepsis and serious infections. Sudden deterioration due to an infection, and they've died.
I think that what they've done, if you look at the data...
I'm so sorry, I think I need to
I do apologise.
No.
It's gone on.
Because we've got other people waiting to come. But I really want to thank you both so much. It's been a very interesting session, and we have learned a lot from it. So thank you very much.